Okay. Um. Welcome to another drop podcast episode. If you're watching on, or if you're listening on Spotify or any of the other various platforms that I am on, link in description if you want to go check that out. And then if you're watching on YouTube, welcome to Pokemon Let's Play Part 4. So, gotta say, I'm doing this. I know this is a little bit surprising, but I'm doing this on a Saturday morning because I'm about to start my new job next Monday, so I'm not really gonna be able to do it on Mondays anymore. Unfortunately, but I mean, is what it is. It's gonna be a great job, so I'm not upset about it personally, but it's just I've just had to sort of figure this out. I did like doing this on Monday because it sort of gave me my Saturday as like a weekend break, I guess. But I mean, this isn't that difficult anyway. It's just takes a few seconds. And I enjoy it. I always have fun doing it. But anyway, yeah, but so I'm gonna start a new job, and it's just gonna be for the weekdays. So typically, they say sometimes I'll be working on the weekends, but that's only whenever things get a little bit too crazy. And they just need people to work overtime, which is fine with me because I'm trying to make some more money. Like, everything I'm doing right now is all about trying to set myself up for the future. So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and just, alright, one second. Like I said, okay. Alright, I'm here now. 100% here. So, yeah, just, letting you know, like I said, everything is about setting myself up for the future, and working at Starbucks was a really great job, but the hours were limited because, like, it's a huge chain, and so there's a lot of stores that they have to manage, and whenever you also have a lot of stores, especially in a place like Florissant, where, I mean, it's not the biggest city, you know what I mean, but we have a lot of stores around us, and so we're not, like, if we were one of the few stores, I think it would have been fine, but since I think there's 4 stores around my store, and so our consumers get sort of distributed among all those people, and I mean, making payroll, a lot of people don't realize how expensive it is to run a business. A lot of times, especially in a place like Starbucks, like, I'm surprised, like, it amazes me how all these restaurant and food businesses get to where they are. Like, it shocks me, and I say that because, like, one, there are so many restrictions, so many health and food restrictions, as there should be. Like, I'm not arguing against it. I think it's a great thing, but there are so many restrictions that have to be followed, and so many shortcuts that can't be taken, so much supplies that has to be purchased, whether it's cleaning, the food supplies, I mean, there's just so much stuff that has to get done, and you have to find good managers, good workers that are going to stick around, which is really hard in those types of businesses because you have people leaving like typically those are jobs that like a high schooler will work. And I guess I guess you will get like managers, but it is like heavy on how do I put this? My store, basically, like my store, just as an example, we have it's basically a new store every summer, because you have people graduating from graduating from high school going to college, or people in college either quitting a job to focus more on school, or to just focus, or to because they just finished college, or you know, one of the above. Like it's there's a lot of transition. However, I listened to Joe Rogan's podcast with Bernie Sanders recently, and Bernie Sanders said that most of these jobs are, or that it's not true that a lot of these jobs are held by like people my age who are just in high school, or going into college, who aren't looking for any full-time, or who don't really need that much income, which is a debatable topic, but I don't know. I mean, that's what he said. I assume he has, you know, more information at his grasp than I do, being that he was governor of I forget. I think he was. It was a more rural country, which is surprising to me. Like, I feel like that's how you know. We all think that we're so divided in the United States, but I feel like that, for example, is how you know that we're not as divided as we all think we are. Like, just the fact that you could have a rural place where you probably have majority more conservative-leaning individuals, yet you'll get someone like Bernie Sanders, who is their governor, or who gets elected as their governor. Which, actually, listening to this podcast, I started to realize, like, he's not, like he seems like a very down-to-earth individual. And I actually kind of dug, like, I liked his energy. Like, he just seemed to, like, he genuinely cares about like people in the United States, in the lower class and stuff like that. And I mean, like, you know, I'm not a witch hunter, like, so I know, like, a lot of people talk about politicians, and how they always talk about money, and then you look at their bank accounts and they're doing the same stuff that they're talking about, or something like that. And I'm sure he has, you know what I mean? But I don't know. It's just, I'm not a witch hunter. Like, I don't know. I guess what I should say is, like, for the most part, what he said made sense to me. And maybe he was just doing a publicity stunt, or whatever, but I was cool with it. Like, maybe I didn't agree with everything, but, you know what I mean, I didn't disagree with everything, and I could definitely draw a line of agreement. Like, definitely, like, connections that we all have, objectives that we would all have, and goals. I think my only, like, disagreement, or problem with understanding was, well, I'm not an advocate. Like, I don't see, I mean, definitely, actually, I take that back. Dang. I take that, well, I didn't even say what I thought yet. I was gonna say that I'm not, like, an advocate for raising the minimum wage. But now I'm thinking about it more, maybe I am, because with inflation, the value of money goes down, and so every so often, like every so X amount of years, you are gonna have to raise the wage. But I find I think the national wage, maybe it's changed, but the last time I checked was like $7 and something cents. And one of the lowest wages that I found, at least in like a chain place where uh, I think most jobs are, um, is like $9, 9 something dollars, which working where I was at Starbucks. Like I know other places have more, but working at Starbucks, like that was my wage, and it wasn't bad. Like it's not like for my area, it's not a bad thing to have. It gets more difficult whenever you're looking at smaller businesses, and that's where I kind of have concern whenever you're talking about raising the wage, because these smaller businesses, like whenever you're trying to make it, it's kind of difficult whenever you have to pay these high wages and still trying to like pay employer taxes and other taxes and then other stuff, especially if you don't know like the tax system, because I know like there are ways to get out of like all those crazy taxes that you have to pay, whether that's right or not. Like there are ways, but a lot of times those ways start with money. Um, like for example, you have to like I know you can get like tax advantages off if you jeez if you're like donating a lot of money, or if you have a non-for-profit, or just even owning a business. I know you can get taxes off, which I'm not sure how, because both of my parents started business, and then one dropped it just because like all the taxes were crazy. Like he said, every single employer was so expensive. But I don't know. I mean, that, like I said, this is all just like my personal experience. I know, like just from what I've read, like I guess people can get out of it, and the culture that my mom is around, being like her clientele, it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting world, and I guess I'm not educated enough to speak on it. So I don't, like, I think that's all I'll go as far as that goes. Oh, but I was saying why I'm not an advocate for or necessarily well, I don't even say like an advocate, but I guess one of my few concerns as far as like, how high do we want to raise the minimum wage without thinking about it? Because I definitely think it's not a bad thing to raise the minimum wage, but at the same time, the market, if you bump the wage up, the market's just gonna catch up to it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna be rolling in money or living any better just because they bumped your wage up, because eventually prices are just gonna come up. Because the more money, the more things cost. The more money going into the economy and out of it, the higher prices are going to get. And so it's not really like, you're not really, in the long run, you're not really doing anything. And this is just based off of like sense. Like I haven't, I'm no expert, but like the market's always going to catch up. You know what I mean? And you're just sort of causing inflation to occur quicker, based on my understanding. Oh my goodness. And the reason why I say that is it's because if you think about it, like I said, you raise minimum wage. Well, one, you're going to hurt smaller businesses. I think that's the point I was trying to get at earlier. But two, you're going to jeez, got distracted again. Alright, so one, you're going to hurt smaller businesses, and two, you're going to like I said, just like depreciate the value of money faster, which is fine. Like, I don't think that's a terrible thing that happens. I think the worst of it really is just killing smaller businesses, because it it's sort of like, at a time like this, especially whenever we're dealing with whatever epidemic or pandemic or whatever the term is, and these bigger businesses are taking some hits. It's the time where these smaller businesses that are more adapted to the recent world are able to rise up and sort of take the place of these bigger businesses that we all thought were gonna be like these huge monopolies and last forever. Like for example, if someone has some idea that can knock Amazon off of its pedestal, right now is sort of the time where it's gonna shine through, because it's the most well adapted to what's going on, and trying new things, and stuff like that. And so it's important that we allow those to be able to thrive. And it's just, I mean, I'm optimistic. I'll say it would be painful for those, like, you would probably hurt small businesses until the economy caught up to the minimum wage, the higher minimum wage. But I don't think it's a good thing to just set it. Like, you have to let it grow, let it catch up, and let it get there. You know what I mean? But I just think it's kind of pointless. I guess my only problem is it's kind of pointless, and if it were to happen, make sure that you do it slowly. Make sure that, like, maybe each year you raise it 50 or 25 cents or even $1. Just, take it slow. Let the market slowly catch up. Don't just drop down on out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Otherwise, like, I guess it's cool. I just don't really think it will accomplish what the goal is, which is to give more opportunity and give a livable wage to people who need it and don't have it because they don't have, I guess, the credentials. Goodness gracious, so many critical hits. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. But I mean, like I said, like, a lot of what he was talking about, like, I understood. Like, I thought, yeah, like, that's not a bad thing. It was just like that, the one thing that, like, the one sort of issue or disagreement that I have, which isn't even hardly a disagreement. It's even that is more just kind of like, well, you could. I don't necessarily agree, but you could, so I don't know. I guess we are kind of on the same page if thinking about it. But why did I even start talking about that? I know I was talking about that because I brought up how I watched Joe Rogan's podcast, which I've been listening to a lot lately. I absolutely love the way he does it, because it's just like, whenever I did these How About Yous at first, I was very, very, very was very, very focused on trying to be as professional as possible. And then I hear Joe Rogan, and shoot, this guy's like smoking weed on his podcast. And so now it has me thinking, that's not even necessarily what I want. You know what I mean? I don't want to be stressed out before I do a podcast. I want to be excited to be able to learn and talk about this person, which kind of how it was. That was, I think, the whole objective in the first place. But it just got jumbled up somewhere in the mix where I just got, I kept thinking, like, oh, I have to do this. Let's just do it how I want to do it. And that's what listening to this made me realize. And it's so entertaining. I cannot even tell you why. Like, there is no focus. I think he even said one time, like, with Snowden, whenever he did interviewed with Snowden, and Snowden was talking about like he keeps getting off topic, and Joe Rogan was like, oh, there are no off topic conversations, we can talk about anything we want. And I absolutely loved that, because that's how I want to be. Except, I mean, like, there's something that I want to know, and I still have an objective where I want to share leadership qualities and help people grow in their leadership goals. And that's why I think through the conversation, though, I want to pick apart, like, that's in my head, that's what I want to get. But in order to get that, I want to know about these people and their lives and how they think and how they sort of pick apart the world that's around them, stuff like that. And I just don't want to do it concerned about getting a message out. I want to do it getting all the information out and then picking apart after. You know what I mean? I want it to be as genuine and real as I possibly can make it. And so that was one of my biggest struggles for a long time. But I think I overcame that with Maxine Clark. I think with Maxine Clark, that was the first podcast episode where I just talked, let my genuine interests just guide me, and I learned so much. I got excited about so much, like her project, The Divine, Delmar Divine. It's such a beautiful subject, and or such an interesting idea, and such a great subject to talk about, like I said. And I'm really, really excited to see what happens with that. I really think that I built a connection to someone who I think is going to be very, very, or who's going to do something great that I want to be a part of. You know what I mean? Something that I care about too, that I want to help create. But yeah, I mean, all of that just to say, like, that's what I learned from Joe Rogan. And I'm just saying just how fantastic he is. Like, just what a great idea, you know? Like, who would have thought that you could have made success in such a laid-back style in this super saturated, well, I guess it's not saturated yet, but I hear it's, like, on the rise of getting really, really famous. But there's a lot of podcasts out there, and how do you stand out? You stand out perfectly, like how he did. Like, he just got up on there, started making it, and, you know, now he's got this going. And, like, I don't know, I'm just so happy that I ran into, because before I didn't watch his I didn't listen to his podcast or watch it, because I always felt like it was a little bit political, and I was never, like, a political guy. I mean, I shouldn't say I never was. I was, and then I stopped because of how political I was. Because sometimes you need to separate yourself and then come back with fresh eyes whenever you're ready. You know what I mean? Because if you're too blinded by your ideas and you get too angry about things, you miss out on so much. And that's something that I don't want to do. I don't want to miss out on, one, the truth. I don't want to miss out on great relationships that I can build with great people, and I don't want to miss out on being able to change people's lives. Because I also find, and this is something that I talk about a lot, I think. Me and Maxine, we talked about older people, and she said a lot of times older people get stuck in their ways. And I said, well, it might seem like that, but I feel like older people feel like they have to defend themselves, because our perspective is that they're these old timers who are not caught up with the world, and, you know, have some work to do. And whenever you change that perspective from, okay, what can I learn from this person who has 60, 80 years of life on me, then I feel like you start to see the vulnerabilities that they have, and they start to let loose and show you, like, some of the ideas that they're not so sure on, but they have this idea, and, you know, if you make a point, they're like, well, yeah, that's a good point. Like, my girlfriend tells me all the time, you never hear an old person say, huh, that's a really interesting way to think about it. I said, well, you don't ever hear that, because you don't ever listen to them in the first place. You can't expect someone to listen back to you if you're not going to listen to them first. And sometimes you do have to swallow your pride, and but it's so much more valuable, and you get so much more out of a conversation whenever you enter it with a more open mind, like, what can I learn from this, rather than, this is what I know, does he agree with me? Or, this is what I know, how do I confirm this? You know what I mean? If you can't confirm it, don't look for answers. Look for questions. You get what I'm saying? More so, don't look for confirmation for what you think. Look for better questions to ask and ways to poke holes in your ideas. And that's what I'm doing. Like, that's what I'm really, really trying to push right now, because it's difficult. It is very, very difficult. And I know that out of anyone, like, I have had to suck up so much pride. And that is so, so difficult, but it's so, so worth it, because you learn so much more whenever you admit to yourself, hey, I have this idea. I don't necessarily know it. I'm going to defend it, but I want to put it out there, because if you don't put your ideas out there to be picked apart and stabbed at and poked holes into, you're never going to completely bulletproof your ideas. So the concept here is, if you let people shoot at your idea so much, it's almost like chiseling at stone. The more you work at it, like, the more you chip away all the rock on the outside, eventually you're going to get a masterpiece. But see, the trick to it is, there's always going to be another question. So you're always just perfecting yourself and perfecting yourself and perfecting yourself. Looking for ways that you're wrong, not reasons why you're right. Yeah, just some thoughts. I'm going to ignore him. Yikes. Yeah. Just gonna check this time. Okay, making good time. I know last time I went overtime, and I just want to, make sure that I don't do it. Unless it's not a big deal. Like, I only do that because I don't want to, like, bore anyone. But, like, if it's entertaining, let me know. And so if it's interesting, and if you enjoy it. If you like this more chilled back, laid back style. Because I know I like it. I know I like to just ramble on and talk about ideas that I have. One of my workers yesterday, he was talking about that he talks to his brother about all of us, or all about his coworkers, and I said, "What do you say about me?" He said, "I tell him that you're the one that thinks too much." I was like, "Well, I guess I do." I'm thinking about it, but I take pride in it, because I think it's important to think, and it's important to get your ideas out there. I think I get into trouble because I challenge things, and I challenge ideas, and I try not to be afraid to, and I think that's whenever people, like, I try not to make people feel attacked, and I always find that it's easier to get my idea poked at than to poke at someone else's. You know what I mean? Because the way I take it is a little bit less. Like, I will certainly debate someone on it. Like, I will, if you're gonna come for my idea that I've thought about, obviously, like, I'm not just gonna give up my idea because you questioned it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that conversation, and I'm going to try and take advantage of that opportunity where, like, if you're challenging, how do I say this? If you're challenging my idea, I'm not gonna ignore it. I'm gonna argue it because I want to see. You know what I mean? Because if you say something and I have a thought that comes to my mind, and I'm like, well, what about this? Like, I'm gonna tell you that, you know what I mean, so we can work through it. But it's not the objective to be defensive in like, my objective isn't to hold on to my idea with 100% grasp. My objective is to challenge my idea as much as I can. But I can't do that unless I keep trying to, or unless I, like, if I see a way, if you make a really good point, but I see a way where your point might be incorrect, and I don't bring it up, I'm doing us both a disservice, because I'm not thinking fully through it myself, and I'm not challenging you to make a better point against mine, so we can both keep growing. You see what I'm saying? And I'm rambling on about this so much because, like, this is something I'm very passionate about. And I think this is very, very important for leadership to be able to learn how to listen, but not listen because you want people to think you're a good person. Because there's a difference between listening and trying to be something. You get what I mean? Like, maybe that's a little confusing way to put it. But there are definitely people who just pretend to be open-minded and aren't really open-minded. You know what I mean? They just do it because they know it's the right thing to do, but they don't even really question. People forget there's a balance in between it. You know what I mean? And that's just, that's just what I'm trying to make sure that I don't do. I remember that there is a balance, and I don't have to be 100% accepting to anything that ever challenges my idea, or likewise, I don't have to be offended by anyone that's trying to challenge my idea. You know what I mean? Those are two very difficult challenges that I think we all face. Trying to be open-minded enough to where you're willing to accept, or to where you're willing to, one, understand that you don't know, and two, be able to take criticisms or corrections or concepts or challenges. I'm just rambling ideas because I'm trying to figure out the perfect one. But then also being able to understand that you don't have to be 100% super duper accepting towards every single individual in the world, or else really then you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not allowing yourself to fully think for itself. You know what I mean? Or I guess to think that everything is correct is a fallacy, obviously. But more importantly, because of the fact that, or it's dangerous because, you could have zero ideas ever and defend zero ideas and just accept everything that everyone says. But if you're not challenging it in your head, like, you're not really growing. I think that's the best way I can put it. I'll have to write about it some more just to fully confirm it. Which means that I don't understand enough myself, because I feel like if you have, like, to be able to teach something or put it in perfect words, I feel like you have to have the ultimate understanding of it. You know what I mean? So that just means that I have some more work to do. Yeah, I mean, until then, which is okay. Like, it's okay to not know every single answer. But if, like I said, even if you don't know the answer, don't be afraid to look dumb. You know what I mean? I have this philosophy where I'm trying to put as much of myself out there, because I want people to know me for who I am and not be concerned about holding up this image of myself. And I think that's a good practice. You know what I mean? Because I was thinking a lot about, like, okay, what kind of person do I want to portray to everybody? And that's how I started with How About You. Like, I've grown so much since I've started How About You. How About You is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because it's taught me so much about things that I don't have to necessarily do or worry about, you know what I mean? And it's also taught me how to sort of be a better, like, public individual, and not worry about so much, like, what people are going to think about you, because, I mean, people are going to think about you. People are going to think whatever they want, you know what I mean? And if you let that get to you, and you just hide and shelter yourself, what about those people who are going to listen to you? See, they're not going to hear your ideas that could change their life because you're so afraid of those other people who are going to judge you. See what I'm saying? That's terrible. Oh, come on. Yes. Okay. Like, that's terrible. Don't let that happen to you. Just don't let that happen to you. Which is, I mean, easier said than done. Like, don't let that happen to you. But just don't be afraid to express your ideas. I wrote some topic points that I want to get to. I guess right now would be a good time. Oh yeah, so I told you about my new job. That's gonna be starting this Monday, and it's gonna be 6 to 2. So these 6 to 2, but then I have weekends off, so I'm gonna do these on Saturday because I like to do these in the morning. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm not gonna be able to do them, just cause I'm gonna be working sometimes whenever they need me. But for the most part, I'll be here. You know. And if I'm not able to do it in the morning, I'll get it in eventually. Yikes. So yeah, I mean, just expect these to be mainly on Saturdays though, from now on. And even more so than that, expect like, if not on Saturdays, then it'll probably be on either later on Saturday or even Sunday, because if I really need to, then Sunday I'll have if I really need to, then Sunday I'll get on after I upload my job episode, and I'll let you guys know about that. Oh, and speaking of the drop, I think I told you about, well, in my last drop episode, I told you that I started changing the names of the episodes from the drop 1, drop 2, drop 3, to now it's going to be like more of like a subject, so that people know what, at least like a general premise. I ran into an issue with that though, where I was worried too much about trying to make a topic of the video rather than just doing what I usually do, which is get on and just talk. And I think that brought like the quality down a little bit, but since I think I fixed that, and it'll be good. It'll be good. I'm excited. Nevertheless, so I mean, I just brought that up because like that's what you're gonna see from now on. It's still gonna be in the drop like playlist, so that there is a difference, but it's not gonna be called the drop anymore. Or I might do like the drop in parentheses or something like that. I'm still trying to figure out, like, I'm not gonna drop the pennies in anymore because I always forgot in the first place, and I just like the idea that it would be it was gonna be something that I would do every time. What am I trying to say? It would be something that I would do every time I would shoot. It would be something that I would do. Oh yeah, just every episode until I got to like 100 pennies. Like, I thought that was kind of cool, but since I've let go, and then I told you in Oops. I told you in my last drop episode also that I would be starting. What did I tell you? I told you I'd be starting to. Sorry, I'm so distracted right now. Okay, starting to. Alright, I'm focused. That I told you in my last The Drop episode that I was working on this project for making some passive income streams. And one thing that I've started is this thing through Redbubble called Mr. Pixel. And basically what Mr. Pixel is I just like I've been doing like video game characters. Like I have one that's Samus. I have a pixelated Samus. And then I have a and then I've been doing Dragon Ball Z characters because I just finished Dragon Ball, a show that I used to watch a long time ago, and I absolutely loved it. But like I was trying to say, Mr. Pixel is just like I said, the pixelated characters. I've been doing like Legacy of Goku pixelated looking characters. Also a game that I used to play as a kid that I absolutely loved. So that's been cool to revisit. And but I was bringing that up because I think for these I was gonna do like a video showing me doing it, like showing me how I make it, like the process I go through. I think it'll be cool. Like, so I mean, just let me know if you want to see that. You know what I mean? And I will definitely, do that for you. Well, I think this is a good place to end this. So I'm gonna chill here, and I will check you later. Make sure that you go check out my podcast for this. Unless you want to watch this on YouTube, then that's cool too. But make sure there's if you don't want to watch like the Pokemon, then you can just listen to audio. It's called TheDropPodcast. There's a link in the description. You can also check out my LeafDesigner clothes. It's a Redbubble thing. There's a link to that in the description too. It supports me a little bit. There's also some support links if you want to donate to me in any way through both of my podcasts, How About You or The Drop. You can also check out the How About You episodes. My one with Maxine Clark was really good, and I have another guest that I'm thinking about. I'm taking my time with it, but I'm thinking about, and I definitely think I'm going to get her on. She sounds really cool, and I think she'll be a great guest. And also, I'll show you about Mr. Pixel Man in my next drop episode. So make sure that you don't miss out. So make sure that you subscribe, comment, like, follow me on social media. It's just Joshua B64, I think. It has my face on it. You can't miss it. But yeah, do all that stuff. Hit the notification thing to make sure that you don't miss the next episode where I show you how I do my little designs for Mr. Pixelman. But alright, so this has been a good episode, and I will check you next time. Now, of course, this is our